This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman.
This is George Newbern, the voice of Superman.
And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam.
Streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 351 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal. With me, my good brother and co-host, it's Liam. Liam, we had quite a momentous episode last week, celebrating our 350th episode of the podcast. Definitely encourage listeners, if you didn't get the chance to do so, check out that character spotlight. We shined the big old DCAU character spotlight on Ra's al Ghul, and had some help from director Kevin Altieri, friend of the show. Had a blast doing that. It was a fun week, but we will continue, Liam, here with back into our more normal reviews. However, as we mentioned at the end of last week's episode, we're taking a bit of a deviation to the Elseworlds in what we've dubbed Elseworlds Finest Month here, where we're taking a look at some Batman and Superman in the Elseworlds, and then culminating it with a Batman Superman Elseworlds tale. And this week we're starting with The Dark Knight, and an interesting one for a what is often dubbed an underrated series of Batman animation.
That's right. So we are returning once again to one of our favorite Elseworlds locations, that being The Batman 2004, the animated series, which ran for 5 seasons. And we're breaking into season 3, I believe, for the first time. We got a Batman and Batgirl pre-Robin entering the show team up episode here to talk about today. And speaking of underrated, maybe a villain who doesn't get to pop up quite as often as he should. But we have Maxie Zeus as the main antagonist of today's episode, Thunder.
That's Maximilian Zeus, as he would definitely correct you with. But yes, it is indeed an interesting one here. I think we have looked at season 3 before, because isn't this the season with the Justice League episode, or is that season 4?
That's season 4.
Superman episode?
That's season 5.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I know we've covered something, but this is the first time we get to see Batgirl in action without Robin. We've covered some episode with Robin. Maybe it's the Robin episode?
That's the season 4 premiere. So.
Okay. All right. That's the one that we've covered. All right. Now we've sorted it out. I'll leave the memory holding to you, because there's definitely a stronger memory with you than it is with me. But yeah, as you mentioned, we have an interesting one today to cover. And before we get into this episode, which originally aired here in the United States on the Kids WB programming block back on February the 11th, 2006, I will, of course, take this time before we get into our official IMDb synopsis for this week's episode. We'll talk a little bit about one of the ways to support the podcast, and that is through buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. That's buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. What that does is allows you as listeners, if you like the podcast and want to show support to the podcast, you can head over to there and support us with a single or reoccurring monthly support. And, if you want to buy us a drink, that's like old timey thing. Like, hey, I appreciate what you did there. Let me buy you a drink. Like, if you want to do that, then like this is the way to virtually do that in the year 2025. So we have multiple ways to do that. You can do a one-time or a single support for us, or as I mentioned, you can do a reoccurring monthly support. And at the reoccurring monthly support, we have a few different levels. All of those monthly supports come with additional perks. So you get shout outs on the podcast. You get a little thank you gift no matter what level you're at. And you also get the opportunity, if you're at our top tier, which is our super friend tier, you get the opportunity to ask a question of the week. Should something tickle your fancy about the pod or something you're curious about asking. And we, of course, do have a question of the week a little bit later in the podcast. But maybe you just want to say say thank you, or as our latest supporter Lorenzo did, you want to bribe us and encourage us to continue reviewing more The Batman episodes. I had a chuckle as I opened up the hellscape known as Twitter X last night and saw a very funny message from Lorenzo who said he was giving us a one-time support donation just to say, hey, I'm bribing you. Here is one donation. And you know what? If you do another episode of The Batman later on, I'll throw in another donation for you. So shout out to Lorenzo. I chuckled at that one. And Liam, I think it reveals that we are open to bribes.
Absolutely. That's another way. To encourage us if there's a certain Elseworld you'd like us to visit, or maybe a DCAU episode you think we need to revisit for a re-review, or characters for a meta brawl or a character spotlight. Hey, money talks, everybody. Like that's a great way to get our attention. Joking, of course. We take those advisements on Twitter and Instagram as well. But hey, it definitely joking aside, it does get your attention.
It doesn't
thank
discourage
you
us. That's for sure. It doesn't do anything to discourage us if you would throw a little support our way. And I will also say that there are some episodes that we will not revisit, regardless of how much money you throw at us, because it really is not worth it to cover Underdwellers for a third time. But I digress. Maybe you want to join those supporters. Maybe you want to try and get our attention with a donation. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review and join the growing list of supporters of the pod today.
That's right. So this is the IMDb synopsis for Thunder, which is written by Paul Giacapo, directed by Christopher Berkeley, with music by Thomas Chase and animation by Dong Wu. And that synopsis reads as such. Crazed millionaire Maximilian Zeus takes control of Gotham from a ship hovering above the city.
That's not infactual. It's not.
It's like the TV guide blurb,
Yeah, it doesn't spoil anything. Gives us the basically the first 8 to 10 seconds of the episode, so nothing spoilery there. But let's get into our own synopsis here, Liam. But we get a little bit of a news break at the beginning of our episode as we see news cut in to kind of recap and fill in some of the exposition needed to understand exactly what's going on. We have Mayor Grange, who's going up once again for re-election, and he's going up against Maximilian, or Maxie Zeus in this case, in an attempt to overthrow. Although he doesn't use those words, I guess it's more of an election. Maxie's up for election against him, and apparently he's pretty popular, at least right off the bat. But then he does the thing that all political candidates are certainly quite afraid of. He makes a little public boo-boo in one of his speeches when he decides that he's going to replace all of Gotham's police department with gladiators.
And now an update on tonight's election. As Gotham's Mayor Grange defends his post against billionaire technologies mogul Maximilian Zeus, who earlier in the campaign appeared poised to win.
You might say the classics inspire me. After all, the Greeks and the Romans proved that great societies rise through strong leadership.
But despite his popularity, Zeus began losing support when his campaign unveiled some unusual ideas.
I shall remodel our city's ineffectual police department after my own private security force of gladiators.
Glad I didn't vote for him.
You'd be sharp looking all Spartacus, Pop.
With nearly all the votes tallied, Mayor Grange is guaranteed a resounding victory tonight.
Which is incredibly funny. Because honestly, in 2025, I don't think that it would be that far-fetched for any political candidate to suggest that as a option.
I was going to say, there is some prescient stuff here. Weird tech billionaire, unelected, decides to he's just going to control the government anyway. Also a weird tech billionaire that has a weird obsession with Greek and Roman history and haircuts and architecture and stuff. We got a lot of those running around in the modern world, not just one guy.
That's right.
So I was like, yep. Oh, this is the technology perhaps a little bit more fanciful and sci-fi, but the archetype very much there's some real world parallels in the modern era.
There you go. Art imitating life 20 some years before it actually happened. Who would have thunk? But here we are. So as Maxie Zeus announces that he's going to replace the police department, apparently that was enough for the citizens of Gotham to wring their hands and say, we're not interested in electing this fool. And that allows Mayor Grange to be reelected in a landslide. So we kick things off with Bruce Wayne introducing his good friend, Mayor Grange, being reelected a second time, or actually we don't know how many times he's being reelected. Being reelected again to be mayor of Gotham, and to much applause and appreciation from the crowd. And just as he is about to take the podium to give his acceptance speech, the screens, the display screens around at his celebration party, his inauguration party here, or re-election party, his campaign party, I guess, here, they all switch over to a feed featuring Maxie Zeus, who announces that he's not gonna go that quietly into the night. And he's announcing that he is forcibly going to take over Gotham, whether the citizens like it or not. And he's going to establish a rule thanks to his gigantic airship, the New Olympus.
Tonight's results, while disappointing, do not surprise me. But I cannot allow this beloved metropolis to crumble.
Like so many great civilizations past.
Thus I, Maximilian Zeus, shall rule over Gotham from New Olympus. So that we may better venture together into the future, I shall erase the mistakes of the past.
Bart, get out of here.
Demonstrates its power by completely eviscerating what I hope was a completely empty city hall, because it was just absolutely disintegrated in seconds. There's giant sky beam coming from a giant hovercraft, all that kind of also resembles. There's some Star Wars in the DNA of this episode. Also. Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of Star Wars in the DNA, but it's like a Star Destroyer. And a Death Star all in one. It destroys City Hall. It's eviscerated. So at this action here, we see Barbara Gordon, who is there in the crowd with her father Jim, decide that it's time for her to suit up. And we learn very quickly, Liam, we are dropped in the middle of this third season here. So Barbara, I think she was introduced, from my understanding, maybe in the premiere of this season with a two-parter, or at some point during the season with a two-parter. And then, but she's not quite partnered up with Batman, as we see here. She's kind of running her own sort of vigilantism here, unbeknownst to her father. Batman is aware of her, but has not agreed to partner up or welcome her into the fold, so to speak, yet. So she's it's not all that different than how she started in Batman the Animated Series also, where she's just kind of rogue, doing her own thing. She's not trained by Batman. She's not doing anything other than sort of running her own sort of formation here, trying to be like Batman, and wants to be involved with Batman, but he's a little standoffish, so she's got to kind of do her own thing.
That's right. So she's a freelancer, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but yes, as she goes and suits up and gets on board the giant Star Destroyer, for lack of a better term,
helicarrier.
Yeah, that's raining down over the city. Batman tries to get on board with his glider, as mentioned. He gets shot down, and he just books it. He just takes off in the Batmobile, leaving Batgirl kind of, as she keeps as becomes sort of the phrase of the day, kids, out of the loop, as she decides she's going to spring into action on her own while Batman speeds away. So she heads and swings on board to the ship and tries to figure things out for herself. We cut down to Mayor Grange and Commissioner Gordon, who are like arguing over what they should do, and nobody at any point seems to have suggested call the military in, which I think is interesting. Like
this is a Gotham City problem. Nope, it's a Gotham City problem. They have to handle it on their own.
Apparently, because they can't seem to figure out a way. So their only solution is to evacuate the city. We cut back to the Batcave where we see Batman is what Batman's up to is he arrives back at the Batcave and we get our brand new toy. Literally, everything in this show pretty much was a toy they were selling. So we get the reveal of this show's version of the Batplane, which we might have seen in another episode we've covered before. It's the TIE Fighter, basically.
I think we saw it, wasn't it in the Mr. Freeze episode, the last one that we covered? I think.
It's in that one for sure.
Batgirl flies it, or
Nightwing flies it. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, they're. So here it is again. It's a official debut in the series here, I guess, and they give it a big grand opening, and Batman, we'll talk about it in visuals, gets a cool like flight suit that he wears while he's flying it. So he speeds off back towards battle, and we cut back inside where we see that Maximilian and his followers are preparing to unleash the laser cannon, the Death Star cannon from the ship. This time on the Gotham Bridge, as a bunch of citizens try to evacuate. But we see that Batgirl, in the meantime, finds her way into some sort of room full of wires.
Target locked. Gotham Bay Bridge.
We must burn a few bridges if we are to keep our subjects contained. Ignite Thunderstorm!
20 seconds to full charge. 19.
Well, I hope this one's important.
7.
Guess not. Lucky number 3?
13.
We've lost power?
Only to the countdown mechanism. Thunderstorm continues to charge.
It's still powering up? I'm usually a whole lot better at breaking things.
Starts unplugging things. First, it seems that she's stopped it, but really she's just unplugged the countdown mechanism, and they're still about to fire. And so eventually she manages to unplug the right cord and deactivate the ship for the moment. And I think this is where Batman comes floating back into the scene in the new Batplane. Yeah, and we get some fancy flying. A lot of this is going to have to be covered in visuals because it's a very action-based and visual-based episode. So the Batplane's flying around out there. There's like these unmanned drone things. He calls them harpies that Zeus sends after him. So he's having like a dog fight with those, and then he's dealing with the other guns on top of the ship. He ends up, of course, getting the Batwing dinged and gets a little bit damaged, and he has to make an emergency landing, and that drops him down onto the ship. And as he escapes out of the Batplane, he's now on top of the big helicarrier, and a bunch of these gladiator guards are there to meet him with their they have the things that General Grievous's guys have,
those electro pikes.
And so they shock him into unconsciousness. So even though our Dark Knight has finally arrived on the scene, he is very quickly incapacitated, taken to the Emperor's throne room, where Maxie is seemingly about to fry him with his electric. He has like gauntlets on his hands that give him the Emperor's electrocution powers, or Zeus's lightning bolts, I guess, depending on what you want to say.
Bow to your Emperor.
Welcome, Batman. Your reputation is mythic. But alas, there is only room on New Olympus for one legend.
Attention, staff. I need a price check on kumquats.
She's hacked into our system.
Our gremlin.
Show yourself, Batgirl, and I shall reconsider dispatching your partner.
Partner? That would suggest we actually speak once in a while.
You know, keep each other in the loop.
Enough! He meets his end.
Oh, Maxie.
You may want to hold off on that if you ever want to see your bolt-firing thingy again. Over and out.
But right then and there, we hear that that Batgirl calls over the. She's somehow hacked into the PA system with her cell phone and tells them that, and Maximilian then realizes that she's taken out this special power coupling that helps the targeting on the laser work. Sure, whatever. The MacGuffin for this episode that allows the laser to fire. She's taken it out of the computer console. All of the guards left the computer room to go plug back in the wires she unplugged, and meanwhile she goes and takes this power source, and so she taunts them and then hangs up. She's still hiding in the vents. And at that moment, her father calls her, and she has to kind of make up an excuse why she's, or pretend that she's home safe and sound, and rushes him off the phone. And then when the phone calls back, she picks it up again, only to find out that it's Maximilian himself on the line as they're tracing her cell phone. Because they can do that, I guess.
I know this is 2006 or 2005, whatever it is.
Right.
But cell phones, just never heard of vibrate or silent. Like, just had it on full blast ringer, like in the ventilation shaft. I never know when you're going to need to answer that phone call.
I guess so. But yeah, so she goes a little bit on the run here, as meanwhile Batman frees himself, just does a big backflip and starts fighting all the guys. He's still handcuffed, but manages to free himself. Meanwhile, Batgirl and Maxie face off, and Batgirl just kind of drops the power source thing and breaks it. And yeah, that sets up our final confrontation already, as Batman and Batgirl face off with Maxie. But there's been so much damage to the ship done through all of the lightning and now the ship's targeting computer being disabled that everything's going down with the ship, it seems like, and everybody's ready to abandon ship.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as it looks like that Batgirl looks like she's done in for, the Dark Knight swoops in at the last minute, saving her bacon.
Well, if it isn't the gremlin, I will take the device. You wouldn't dare.
It broke, Maxie.
Then I shall break you! And the name is Maximilian.
A fight between a hand-to-hand combat fight between Batman and Maxie commences. Batman has one of the electro pikes, so we get some electro gloves or electro gauntlets versus electro pike in this very Death Star looking power source room. And they do a little bit of fighting. As you mentioned, everything is damaged because Maxie's just shooting off power everywhere, and Batman's deflecting it, and it's creating damage. So this causes the New Olympus helipad to begin to descend rapidly after the controls are damaged. All of Maxie's subordinates, just like real stormtroopers in Star Wars, abandon ship immediately. They have no stake in this. They know where their bread is buttered, and at this point, it's every man for himself. Everybody's out, so they use the escape pods to escape. Meanwhile, it's just Maxie, Batgirl, and Batman back on the ship. And Batgirl heads over. Despite Batman telling her she also needs to get off the ship, she heads to the control room in an attempt to steer the helipad away from or the helicarrier away from the city, because they're directly above downtown Gotham City. So Batman and Maxie continue their fight. At some point, they become blasting out of the side of it. Batman, thankfully, has a giant parachute built into his fancy new digs that he's wearing. By the way, I don't know if we talked about that. He's wearing the Black Panther suit, or the Ted Wildcat Grant suit for this episode. I'm curious if we'll talk about it in visuals, but I'm like, was this an action figure also at some point? Because if not, they missed out on a great opportunity here.
They definitely made the plane at some point. I don't know if they made this specific flight suit Batman though.
Feels like they've missed out if they did not. But anyway, Batman's parachuting out, holding on to Maxie. Meanwhile, Batgirl is stuck inside the New Olympus, attempting to pilot it away. Batman can only watch on from an accompanying building as the New Olympus steers. Thankfully, Batgirl turns off the autopilot, takes over the controls herself, and begins steering it, and is able to, through her own just kind of verbal dialogue, realize that if she steers the ship into the Gotham harbor, that it'll be a lot safer and no lives will be lost, without potentially hers, but no one else. But she's able to steer the ship directly into the harbor. She is able to escape the ship as well, and seen floating there in exhaustion, but satisfied that she was able to save a whole bunch of lives. Batman, seemingly impressed, mentions as a complaining Maxie Zeus, who's frustrated and worried about what's happening to New Olympus. He mentions that New Olympus is going to be New Atlantis pretty soon, now that it's sinking in the harbor. We get a little postscript here, as not only did New Olympus enter the harbor, but I guess the Batwing entered the harbor as well. It's been retrieved, so we have Alfred and Batman back in the Batcave discussing that the Batwing will need additional upgrades. They have a little discussion about how Batgirl at that point did some impressive things, even more impressive than the Batwing acted in the midst of the battle.
She'll need work. EXP drives need tuning, and the fuel lines are waterlogged.
Thankfully, the Batgirl proved more durable than the Batwing.
You're right, Alfred. I think Batgirl's earned some wings of her own.
And this convinces Batman that it's time to bring her officially into the fold. So we have a little scene here at the end where the bat signal goes off. Batgirl goes to the roof in an attempt to answer the signal, but when she arrives, no one's there. She assumes that she's missed all the action, but then she looks on the ledge of the building and sees a little box with a bat logo on it. And she opens it up, and she realizes now she is welcome to the team, and she's gifted a bunch of gadgets, including a utility belt, one of those communicator, Batwave communicator things, and her own bat grapple, I guess, was the other thing that she's got. But she's got all kinds of gadgets. And then we have a really cool looking scene that we'll talk about in our next category here, is Batman is seen completely in silhouette on the top of a building. Not all that different from the end of Batman, the animated series opening intro. But joining him is none other than Batgirl, who also enters in silhouette. And we get a little music flourish and the end of our episode for this week. All right, Liam. So as far as interesting episodes go, this one's pretty, I feel like this one's pretty paint by numbers. There's not a lot of nuance to this. Bad guy takes revenge over not getting his way, so he's going to destroy the city, or in this case, he's going to rule the city with an iron fist. Batman has to foil it. He has to fight on this guy's terms. This causes Batman to be overwhelmed, and Batman needs a little bit of help. So you got his helper here to kind of be the main star, the person who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, the acting, the crawling around, the unplugging of things and solving of problems. And while Batman ultimately takes down the bad guy at the end, the real hero is ends up being the little sidekick who is really the featured player in this week's episode. Very much more, I feel like, a Batgirl episode than it is a Batman episode, as we're really establishing their camaraderie and partnership here for this series.
Yeah, I think this one feels like it's science so she can kind of hold her own. She's flying solo. Obviously, she and Batman have already had some adventures this season, and like she said, she feels like she's just still not really part of the official squad just yet, even though he's tolerated her up to this point. So yeah, this is a kind of a big turning point moment, I guess, where he officially welcomes her onto the team. Even though I don't think they update the design for the next season to add her new utility belt that she gets in this episode.
I was gonna say, doesn't she still have like the Catwoman looking like?
Yeah, like the little oval pouches.
Yeah, ovals with little tiny strings attached.
Yeah. Her gear is updated. She has like the official bat. She doesn't have like we see in this episode. She has like her own homemade batarangs that she's using. So yeah, she gets the upgraded tech, but not for whatever reason they didn't keep the upgraded belt going forward. But maybe that had something to do with the slight design tweaks when they shifted to that fourth season. But regardless, I think it's it's an episode like you said, it's so action packed and so focused on one, just showing off this Batwing and how cool it is, and then on the other side, like you said, it's mostly about Batgirl. Our villain is pretty one-dimensional, which is fine because it's in service. He's not really the important part of it. But yeah, like I said, I found this one almost kind of hard to rate because I think it's a breeze to watch. Like and we'll talk about visuals in a moment. There's some very fun stuff in there. Like I said, I guess that's really the only thing to sink your teeth into, though, is the whole Batgirl wanting to sort of be let in the club, and then at the end, then she is rewarded for saving the day once again, because she also pilots the ship into the harbor while Batman's fighting Zeus. So yeah, I mean, I guess that gets that mission accomplished as far as getting us from point A to point B there. But yeah, overall, I ended up settling on a 5 out of 10 for my plot score. I think it's a good, solid watch. And like I said, I like the idea of, Batman can't just punch his way through everything. He needs help sometimes, even with his new gadgets and all this stuff. So yeah, and the ending of him sort of embracing her and letting her on the team is fun.
Yeah, I went with the same exact score. Actually, I had 5 out of 10 written down, and I think there's some interesting stuff here. It does feel more like a world building episode. It's like we gotta establish this episode, so Batgirl. There's a reason why Batgirl is on the team, and then we'll get to the next episodes down the line here where it makes sense why Batgirl is. Now Batgirl's in the fold, and we can do some cooler, different things. As far as the actual story itself, it like I said, it's just kind of like a normal. I think you could have plug and played whichever villain here. It didn't have to be. It's cool that it's Maxie Zeus because, as we'll talk about, there's not a lot of appearances for this character. But I think it is. I don't want to say it's a miscarriage of justice because the character is kind of one-dimensional in some ways. He's a guy that has a somewhat irrational fascination and obsession with Greek mythology, Greek mythology. So it just feels though like you could have plugged any of those villains in there, and I don't know that it was the best use of this character in that in that story there. So yeah, and we get some things that are added here. It is the first episode to feature the Batwing. So you're introducing new technology and why Batman has it and why he has to use it, and established his establishment of using it. And inviting Batgirl onto the team, providing her with the technology that she needs to also fight crime alongside Batman. And we alluded to it last week, but I don't think we necessarily talked about it this week. But the reason why Batgirl is essentially selected as the sidekick, and it's done before the establishment of Robin, is because there was like a Robin embargo for this show. Where they weren't allowed to use him due to another animated show that was going on at the same time, as so often happens.
Yeah, that's right. So this is man, what an era for DC animation, where this Justice League Unlimited and Teen Titans are all running side by side at the same time. And yeah, even though we did get to have 2 animated Batman during this period between JLU and the Batman, we decided we could only have 1 animated Robin for whatever reason. So yeah, Teen Titans had Robin as its, one of its main characters. So until that show finished its 5-season run, no go. So yeah, Batgirl gets introduced first as the first kid sidekick, and it's one of those changes. Like it doesn't. I don't think it really matters in the long run. Like who's there first. As we've already talked about that Robin origin episode a long time ago on the show at some point. So, but yeah, it's kind of a quirk of this show. It's a point of difference you can point out when you look at how this show went about introducing some of the larger Bat family characters across the run there. Yeah, it goes Batgirl first. So that does make her maybe a little bit more unique to some other versions of Batgirl that we've covered before. So that's pretty neat. Yeah, I think that's like I said, I think it's a fun little episode, and it does advance the overall series plot as well. So I do have one, and this is really maybe more for the timeline folks. I want to know what people think here. So in this episode, Mayor Grange is elected for 4 more years, we're told.
Mm-hmm.
Yet so this is like season 3, episode 10 or 11. In the Batman Superman story, which we've also previously reviewed on this show, where they introduced Superman to this series, there's a new mayor. Mayor Hill is introduced in that episode because he's the one who meets with Superman.
That's right.
At the start of that episode. So I was like, has 4 years passed between Maxie Zeus here and when we see Mayor Hill being sworn in or talking about being the new mayor? Or did like aliens invade Gotham and Mayor Grange was like, you know what, I retire. I'm out.
Maybe the writers just simply forgot that they had written this episode,
right? Or as we'll talk about, couldn't get Adam West to come back for whatever reason. But
yeah, very, very interesting. Very good question there.
Would love to hear anybody's in-universe explanations for why Mayor Grange isn't the mayor anymore by season 5.
Tweet us at DCAU Review if you're a hardcore The Batman fan, and let us know your thoughts on that this week. We'd love to hear that. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category of the day. That's going to be animation and visuals. As you mentioned, Dongwoo, the animation studio responsible for this week's episode, our director, Christopher Berkeley, responsible for the direction of this episode. Yeah, as you talked about during our recap here, there's several different scenes that kind of take up the majority of what we would talk about otherwise. I think this week, as far as audio clips are concerned, I'm gonna be like scratching the bottom of the barrel here, because it's a lot of visual excitement and visual engagement. As you mentioned, the dogfight between Batman and the, what do you call them? The things that he sends after the harpies.
Yes.
Harpies that he sends after the Batwing. I guess we can start at the Batwing. Batwing is a TIE fighter with the wings on backwards. Yes. I did like that when it's hanging, it still looks like a bat. Like it still has like the ears, and it based on whatever, and it just kind of looks like a hanging bat, like an upside down hanging bat, versus like the bat with its wings spread. So that's a different point of difference compared to most ways of drawing the Batwing or the Batplane. So I like that. I think it's unique. It's kind of jarring that Batman is in like a TIE fighter now, but but sure, whatever. Like this is a different world. It's a lot more fancy and futuristic when it comes to its technology, and runs fast and loose with the rules of how much money it would cost a billionaire to spend. Although they do mention that him being a billionaire was a perk into being able to build this gigantic flying machine. So I guess it checks out. What are your thoughts on this iteration of the Batwing?
Yeah, I had that in my notes as well. I do think it's a neat little visual when it's hanging and you can see the little like teeth making the bat ears.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. Yeah, when it's flying around out there, yeah, it's just like, oh, he's in a TIE fighter. Like that's just all it looks like to me. And he's basically in a TIE fighter pilot suit because he's in like this all black gear with even his mouth is covered in it. So like this big silver gas or I guess supposed to be like oxygen or something on his face. So yeah, it's okay. It's certainly not anywhere near one of my favorite Batplane designs, but it's creative. It's certainly unique for the show. But yeah, I don't love it. I don't know. Like it just doesn't scream Batman to me. This feels like this could be from any number of like sci-fi. Like, again, it's like we're trying to do Star Wars, but we're not doing Star Wars. So like it doesn't feel particularly Batman. Like I said, other than that one shot where you see it hanging and you can see the bat ears kind of hanging down, it doesn't feel particularly Batman to me. But I mean, I don't hate it, but it's just I don't love it.
Yeah, you mentioned Star Wars very much so. Man, this is like the second time in less than 5 weeks that we've talked about an episode highly influenced by Star Wars. I mean, it's only one of the most influential movies of the last 100 years, but so it makes sense. But yeah, we get plenty of Star Wars influence here with the dogfight between the Batwing and that, as you mentioned, Batman's duds. I dig them. I don't know that like I said, the fact that I'm not aware of an action figure that was made of this suit, and the fact that they missed out on that. And also he's got some weird, like, I'm not quite sure what the thing on the back of the suit is supposed to be. He's got some weird apparatus. It's supposed to be like, was that supposed to be oxygen tubes or something like that? I didn't quite understand the function of it, but he takes the helmet off also immediately once he gets out.
I think it's a parachute, because that's how he gets out of the plane.
Good call.
We saw him parachuting down with Maxie at the end.
Someone listening to the episode was like, it's the parachute, you dummies. Good call. Thank you for saving me the embarrassment. Yes, the parachute attached to the back. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's interesting. No cape flowing around is always a weird look for Batman, especially in a modern day Batman, a non-Beyond Batman. So, yeah, I think that was neat. You know, a lot of this episode is supposed to be different. He talks about it. Batman talks about it at the beginning of the episode, how he has to take on Maxie on his own turf and in the sky. So a lot of things are different. So it's not normal. So I guess that makes sense. Maxie, as you mentioned at the top, he's got more of a classic Roman haircut, I would say. The beard connected to the hair, and the short haircut with no bangs, and maybe cuts his hair himself. I don't know. That's an interesting look. Very different, obviously, than the Batman the Animated Series look that we saw, which was much more Greek influenced with the toga and the beard and the mustache and all of that. So this is a little bit different than that. He also has an interesting suit of armor, which also feels very Roman in its inspiration. He's got a pretty cool battle mask that he wears at one point, and all of his little minions also have little battle masks that they wear, which is kind of cool. They all look kind of neat. I think it's interesting. It makes for a good visual. I didn't hate the way they looked, and it differentiates itself enough where it is kind of laughable in Batman the Animated Series that he's taking on this guy in a toga. And granted, he had the electricity, like the Thunderbolt weapon that he used against Batman and that to kind of overpower him. But he's just kind of like a big dude in a toga. This guy at least has like the suit of armor that he's using that's electrified, that is, makes him seem a little bit more formidable to the Dark Knight, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like it works better for this show where everybody can do like a quadruple somersault and flip
Right.
through the air and all that. Like you can't have just like an insane businessman in a toga fight this version of Batman. So yeah, they power him up, like you said. The big tech gauntlets that give him like the Emperor lightning fingers is cool. I enjoy him and Batman having it's not a lightsaber fight because Batman has like a staff and he has the gauntlets, but it's amalgamating that, and the backgrounds certainly look like the Return of the Jedi, the big like tube engine room, nuclear engine room thing that's hanging off of the throne room.
Yep.
So they certainly have some Star Wars aesthetics there. So I like that. I mean, like it is the all of the stormtroopers, the gladiators, for lack of a better term. I mean, they're all pretty much identical, but it's unique. It's a unique piece. Like I was thinking, like, yeah. I mean, speaking of, we talked about how toy driven this show was. Like, I was like, this would be a neat playset. I don't think kids care enough about Maximilian Zeus and his gladiators to get a toy out of it, but it's like, yeah, that would be a good that could have been a good this would be a fun one. I would want, if I was 8 years old watching this, I immediately would have wanted these guys to be out in action figure form so I could have Batman fight a bunch of gladiators. So it's cool, it's fun, it's kind of like marrying the sci-fi Star Wars spaceship with the Greek architecture and color scheme. I think they did a really good job with that in the backgrounds and the kind of the very sleek design of all the gladiators and everything. So they did a good job there.
DC High Volume Batman. The Dark Knight's definitive DC Comics stories, adapted directly for audio for the very first time.
Fear. I have to make them afraid.
He's got a motorcycle. Get after him or I'll have you shot.
You mean blow up the building?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
New episodes every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, just kind of tying a knot on tying a bow on our Star Wars references. I think the entire thing of course, Batgirl sneaking around trying to unplug the power source, very reminiscent of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the beginning, in the Star Wars: A New Hope, sneaking around trying to disengage the power of the original Death Star and all of that. So it continues. There was plenty of that. I did think the final fight between Batman and Maxie, I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to see as much, because it feels like something may have been cut, because they're fighting and there's a really neat kind of trick that they did where it's supposed to make them look like they're moving around this the powered core thing, but all they did was just kind of rotate move the front and the back, or the foreground and the background, to make it look like they were rotating. So they're kind of standing static, and then the background and the foreground move to make it kind of look like they're rotating. I thought that was a neat trick, but I was disappointed. It felt like something was kind of cut, because they're fighting, and then the next thing you know, Maxie's falling out of the side of the ship, and Batman's coming out after him, and it was just like, well, it would have been nice to see Batman kick him out there or throw him out there or something, but it just feels like, I don't know if it was a shift in the ship that was supposed to cause it or something, but it felt like all of a sudden they were both falling out of the side of the ship. So it does seem like that fight ends a bit abruptly based on how powerful that seemed that Maxie was, and Batman was holding his own with the electro pike, but wasn't really making much headway between the two of them. So felt like we were robbed with a bit of a comeuppance for Maxie there. But I guess the comeuppance he gets is the crash of the new Olympus into the harbor. I thought some of the POV shots or I guess it's not a POV shot, it's over her shoulder, of Batgirl as she's steering the ship, kind of looked neat as she's trying to angle it towards the harbor. I thought that the little box on the ledge, I literally wrote down, is that a bat Keurig? Because it looks like she's opening up a Keurig to like it's just from the shape of it. I was like, does Batman give her a Keurig? Like, what's in the box? But I do like how you get the POV shot from inside the box up in, like, you don't get the full reveal of what's inside the box initially. And then she pulls out, we get this super stylized compilation of her kind of enjoying the different spoils of the of her labor there with the technology that Batman is gifting her. But we get that, and that kind of bookends her original suit up transition piece that we get montage where she's putting on her suit and it's just kind of her normal suit, so that kind of bookends that pretty nicely. And then I think the last thing to mention is that final sequence that we get with Batman on the ledge. Anytime Batman's in silhouette with just the lenses of his mask on the top of a building, that's really cool. And then you make it even cooler, at least with this story, by having the sidekick finally join him, letting you really hammering home that, all right, she's on the team now. She doesn't just have cool gadgets. Like, he's fully embracing the idea of having her as a sidekick.
That's right, and hashtag cape movement just flowing beautifully in that last,
huge capes.
That silhouette. Yeah, that's maybe my favorite aesthetic thing about this show is that Batman's cape is like 9 feet long. Like, it totally doesn't make sense. He'd be tripping over it all the time, but it looks so freaking cool.
It does.
That you just allow it because it's a cartoon.
That's
so right. Yeah, I loved it. I love that final shot. It's really, really cool. And then I guess this is our first Batgirl. I like this Batgirl suit. Like, I don't remember liking it so much at the time, but maybe it looks like a fun marriage, although ironically, because the second thing I'm going to mention hadn't happened yet in the comics, but it looks pretty based on the 60s suit, as far as all the purple. But then also it has that very like DIY quality to it because she made it herself. So like her gloves aren't like form fitting, and she has this like purple dress and stockings, and then the knee high boots, and then it's a little of the like the Batgirl of Burnside look from the comics they introduced several years later. So I kind of like that it looks a little. It should look a little DIY because it is. Right. She just kind of makes the suit on her own. So. And she's 14 or whatever she is in the show. So I appreciate this Batgirl design more, I think, coming back to it now than maybe I did when I was watching the show as a younger man.
The only thing that I cannot stand, and it gets me every single time I watch this show, is the way that her hair flips and just doesn't move. I'm like, is it made of plastic? Like, what does she just put so much gel in her hair that it just does not move? It's flipped up backwards up the back of her head and just stays that way. There's no movement at all. Hashtag no hair movement. Gets a little bit on my nerves and just unnerves me a little bit. But the rest of it, I agree with you. I actually think she looks a lot better with the upgraded belt. Like, I would love it even more if they kept that belt. I don't love the little oval belt that ultimately becomes or is her standard look, but I understand it probably, they had a character model and they just stuck with that regardless of what upgraded upgraded technology Batman gave her. So yeah, for all those reasons, I think animation is something that you know, it would be hard pressed to really dislike the way that this show moves. Things move smoothly. There's some really great dynamic looking scenes in this. I think it marries the digital animation with, I couldn't even tell you. I don't know if the Batwing was CGI or not. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a good thing in this case. So I thought that animation was definitely the standout for this episode, which is why I ended up giving it an 8 out of 10. And I think it's really strong. I think everything looks really good. I think there are some really interesting tricks that they pulled, and you know, the designs that we already talked about with the bat plane. Even if in flight it doesn't look super Batman, you know, when it's static, standing still, it looks cool. The dogfight is really neat. You know, the escape pod shooting out, all that stuff looks really, really cool. And of course, lots of homages to one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, we'll go with 8 out of 10 as far as my score. What about you?
Yeah, I love it. I'm just 1 point lower at 7 out of 10. Yeah, don't disagree with too much, but like I said, I just don't love this bat plane. So maybe that brought my score down a little tiny bit. But yeah, overall, a lot of fun. And like I said, I think they did, especially the background designers and character designers in this case. Like I said, marrying the super sci-fi tech stuff with this kind of Greek and Roman aesthetic and color palette. They did just an awesome job. I think the inner workings of the ship and everything looks so cool.
There you go. All right, then let's move on to our next category, which is going to be music. And
Thomas Chase, responsible for the music this week.
All righty. Thomas Chase, thank you very much. As far as music is concerned, I think we've covered this show enough to kind of know what to expect when it comes to music. You get a lot of the guitar fills, the reverberating, repeating guitar effect that kind of punctuates a lot of the dialogue and scene transitions. You do get some musical cues, of course. The dogfight, the sinister moment, I think, when Maxie is coming over the video board to start. The landing of the New Olympus in the harbor, all of that has some pretty standard symphonic orchestral music. But the rest of it is kind of punctuated with the typical The Batman guitar. There was an interesting, what I thought was going to be a needle drop for the original The Edge Batman theme at the end, where Alfred and Bruce are talking in the Batcave about Batgirl, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, despite this being the season that doesn't use that as the theme, that theme begins to start to swell in the scene, but then it kind of deviates into something else. I did you catch that, or am I crazy?
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely heard that. I wondered if it, because the new theme song, which is kind of this like techno dancey remix of the Adam West Batman theme, or at least has elements of that. That's almost kind of used, I feel like, for Batgirl's theme throughout the episode. Like it's played more on an electric guitar, but every time she kind of springs into action, you get that, and so maybe I didn't know if that was just like a point of difference to have Batman have like a more unique theme, but yeah, it really kind of comes in strong, especially at the end when he's sort of like, when Alfred kind of gives him the advice that, hey, Batgirl, really brought a lot to the table here. She kind of saved the day, and he's sort of pondering what that means. And yeah, they really kind of bring that in, bring in the old Edge theme, or at least music, or at least a guitar sound that's almost identical to it.
Yeah.
And then that sort of leads into this sort of, it's music that we've definitely heard before in this show, but it's more of an epic orchestral theme for Batman as he's standing on the roof next to her at the end there. So they kind of weave in and out of a couple of the regular themes. But yeah, it did feel like they mixed that in, and not just that usual little like 3-second scene punctuating refrain on the electric guitar, like the echoey guitar we hear when a scene transitions. Right. This time it was a little bit extended for sure.
Yeah. You already brought up, I was going to say the only other musical note that I really had was the Batgirl theme that plays when she's doing her little costume put on at the beginning, her little transformation scene. And then when she arrives onto she swings from the rooftop onto the New Olympus ship, boarding it. We kind of hear it there. And then once again, I think when there's another portion where she does it, where it plays too. I don't remember. I didn't have the scene marked down, but it's definitely played again. But anyway, yeah, it's that is interesting because it is, as you mentioned, kind of like the main theme, which is like, oh, is this the Batman or the Batgirl show? Is this she gets the theme? Like, is this her theme at this point? So I'd be interested if we were to revisit this in the future, if we do another season 3 episode, does this ring true? Do we find a pattern here that this ultimately becomes the Batgirl theme? So yeah, overall, I think music is is fine. It doesn't do anything detrimental to the show. I don't think it adds a whole bunch, except maybe in those Batgirl themes. I do like that character gets a theme that's recognizable and replayed in the show. So for those reasons, I went with a 6 out of 10. I think that probably took the reoccurring use of that theme kind of took it above that normal, just kind of middle of the road 5. Because I like that you're trying to establish, whether it sticks around or not, you're establishing for this episode, this theme belongs to this character.
Yeah, I went with the exact same score, 6 out of 10. Yeah, like I said, I think it's difficult just because like I said, it is so much kind of reused music so much of the time. So this one definitely stands out a little bit more because it has at least a few unique character themes to play with.
Wish we heard more of that Edge theme used as like a needle drop for an episode. So good. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next and final category of the day, which is going to be voice acting. We'll talk a little bit about our voice actors and actresses, a couple of really big, recognizable DCAU and beyond voice acting legends in our supporting cast and in our main cast for this week's episode. Let's go ahead and talk about this week's voice actors and actresses.
Absolutely. So we have Mitch Pileggi playing Commissioner Gordon here. Maybe you might recognize him from live action work like Basic Instinct or The X-Files, but also done quite a bit of voice acting work as well. He only gets a few lines here, but he's just kind of the no-nonsense cop here but he believes in Batman, so that's good to have. But fun enough, he gets to play off a couple of Batman in this series, as voicing Mayor Grange is none other than the late great Adam West, which I kind of totally forgot about, that he's the mayor for the first couple seasons of the show. But that's a really fun inclusion to have him in here, and he only has a couple of lines as well, but I think it was interesting having this scene of him and Gordon kind of going back of like, again, Mayor's like, okay, so what do we do? and he's like, I don't know. We'll just see what Batman does. Like, we can't do anything.
It's very funny, the line that he gives where he says, "What's he gonna do? Knock down that flying ship with his boomerang?" I cackled. I had to rewind and listen to it a second time. Very, very funny. Also, of course, people listening are likely to know Adam West. Outside of the Batman world, of course, he played a mayor. He plays maybe his second most famous role outside of Batman is Mayor West on Family Guy. So funny that he has played a mayor in multiple different cartoon series here. But yeah, I mean, it is. To say it's not distracting would be a lie, because it's Adam freaking West, and it's he's delivering this with the drama that he would in every sort of delivery that he would give in voice acting. So it is kind of it is, if you let it will take you out of the episode. I'm just happy. Like, it just made me happy. It was like, man, it's so cool that they got Adam West to do a voice for this show. You could have cast any person in this role, but of course, you're paying tribute to a lot of people's favorite Batman and childhood Batman. So yeah, 2 thumbs up for getting the late Mr. West to play the mayor of Gotham for this episode.
Absolutely. It's just fun that he's there. But you are right. It is very attention pulling when you hear that voice bellowing out of this mirror.
The way that he pronounces the word "what," also he goes, "What?" Yes. Like, he pronounces the whole WH. Yes. What are you?
Incredible.
What do you expect him to do?
What are we gonna do, Jim?
Only thing we can. We wait for the bat.
So we can do what? Knock down that flying battleship with his boomerang?
Batarang.
With all due respect to the Dark Knight, he's only one man. Zeus vaporized City Hall.
Yes, it's delightful. It's quite a bit of fun. And speaking of familiar voices, we do have playing Maximilian Zeus. We have Phil Lamar. And look, this is not Phil's fault. Obviously, we just can't stop talking about him. Even in our Elseworlds episodes, he's popping up lately.
He's everywhere.
But I mean, he's great. But he's not given a lot here, right? There's a little bit about like, we need to rule with an iron fist or whatever. But it's like he's such a generic bad guy in this episode. But I was always like, oh, that's kind of a waste of like such a talented actor. But I mean, he does fine with what he's asked of. It's just he's generically evil and he likes Greek stuff. Like that's kind of it. Like
it's very much, I will say, for a lot of the episode, it's the same delivery as Green Lantern. Like you listen, if you close your eyes, if you played some of these clips of this dialogue in isolation, you might be able to trip up a few people into thinking that it's lost Green Lantern dialogue just from the delivery. I mean, there's some differentiation in when he's really upset or where he's really frustrated, or he turns on he has like this thespian accent that he uses when he's really when he's really upset or when he's really giving a long dialogue. But a lot of it is, especially at the beginning, when the first time that you hear him introduced and they're showing the clips of him introducing himself talking about the gladiators. It's like, oh, it's Phil Lamar, and he's like the second voice that you hear when you tune into the episode. So again, not bad, and it's not detrimental because of who's doing the voice, but because we're the DCAU review and we hear his voice in multiple shows, it is a little bit distracting if you let it be. If you aren't able to just sort of put your ear blinders on, your earmuffs, I guess, your earmuffs, ear blinders, earmuffs on, and just kind of accept it for, okay, this is a character that just happens to sound like the Green Lantern from the DCAU, then it could be distracting. I will say that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just he's putting on the real, he's really putting that bass into his voice, and that's always gonna kind of make you think of Jon Stewart for sure. But otherwise we do have Alistair Duncan, albeit briefly, as Alfred. Always nice to hear him. One of our favorite non-Ephraim Zimbalist division Alfred voices that we've heard across a few different animated projects. I think he does a good job here. He gets to impart the little wisdom and nudge Bruce towards maybe welcoming Batgirl into the fray at the end. And then we have our two main heroes to talk about. I'll talk about him first because I feel like he has less to do. Rino Romano as Batman, who we've talked about several times before. He's fine. He doesn't, like I said, it's not a lot. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue in this episode because he's off getting the bat plane, and then he's off, or the Batwing, I should say, and then he's incapacitated for a great deal of the episode. So, and
then he's fighting for the other quarter of it.
So we hear a lot of grunting and oofs and ahs. And
like, does he do voices of the Gladiator? Any of the Gladiators? You think
he might? I think him and maybe Mitch Pileggi voices Gordon does one, because there is a really funny line where when they first realize Batgirl's on the ship, he refers to her as gremlins, and then they go about their business, and there's another malfunction, and Zeus is like, what's happening now? And the guy just goes, gremlins. And I did laugh at that. I thought that was very good delivery. I think that's maybe there, but yeah, he might do that, or he might voice some of the other onlookers in the crowd or something. But yeah, not a lot for our Batman to do this week, because even at the end, it's all kind of done silently. Alfred kind of makes his point, and then we see him sort of looking wistfully, and then we cut to Batgirl getting the care package, and then they're silently standing on the roof, so we don't even get to hear him give her the big pep talk at the end, like, you're in the club now, kid, don't mess it up or anything. So he's very much a silent protector in this episode for the most part.
Agreed. You literally
that's not necessarily Mr. Romano's fault.
You took that right out of my mouth. I was like, yes, truly a silent protector for this week. Gosh darn it. If you didn't know we were related.
I was going to say. And that we finish each other's
sandwiches.
That's right. And from there, we, of course, have Danielle Judovitz playing Batgirl, who I think we must have talked about it briefly in the flash forward episode of Batman that we covered. But yeah, another veteran voice actress, video games and anime, things like that. Sailor Moon, to her credit. I think she's good. I mean, this episode is again kind of on her shoulders because our villain is so one-dimensional, and Batman, as mentioned, is kind of MIA for a lot of it. So I think she does a solid job. I like one of the quirks that they have in this series is that every time she answers the phone, she has like a different weird greeting that she gives, or she pretends to be from like a different business. And I do enjoy that when she picks up the phone, and her father is just like, can't you just answer the phone like a normal person?
He's so tired of it. Especially in the midst of a citywide crisis.
I was going to say,
he's
like, there's a magic Roman space laser hovering above my head. Can you just say hello?
Yeah, she's great. She has the lion's share of the dialogue, and she I imagine she was not a teenager when she was doing this, but comes off with that spunky teenager energy for sure. With she's a little quippy. She's got some fun dialogue that she gets to deliver. She's a little snappy towards and taunting a little bit towards Maxie when she's got the key and she's in hiding, and then she does have to panic a little bit when the ship is headed towards the citizens of Gotham, and when she's found out when her location is triangulated and found out by Maxie within the ship. So. I think she does a solid job. I think the little excitement that she gets at the end is really rewarding. Especially, she's kind of just complaining under her breath the entire time about how Batman doesn't want anything to do with her, and she's not on the team. And she even gets that little sarcastic little bit of diatribe that she gets to deliver over the PA system, calling Batman out for not allowing her communicating directly with her. It's very fun. I think she brings a lot of character, and it feels authentic to what this 16-year-old kid that is suiting up to try and be like her hero Batman. It brings some authenticity, I feel like, to that. So yeah, I think it was a pretty strong job.
Yeah, totally agree. I think she, like I said, for being the sidekick character, she kind of had to carry the whole thing. So she just does an excellent job there. So because it felt like a lot of our main actors weren't utilized greatly by like such an action heavy and visual heavy episode, I ended up settling on a 5 out of 10 for my voice acting score.
Nice. I went a couple points higher. I don't think it's worth a disagreement alarm. I think I went 7 out of 10. I think her performance really leads the way as far as our actors and actresses are concerned. I do think Mr. Lamar does do a great job.
Sure.
He comes off as evil, even as distracting as it is. So I tried to put that aside. And casting Adam West, I feel like brought that score up just a little bit. Again, even though it's a little bit distracting, soft spot for Adam West in any animation role. So I went with a 7 out of 10 for my score. So not disagreement alarm worthy, but certainly a little bit of a difference there in our final score there. So all right, Liam. Well, that will bring us to our final scores for this week, and totaling everything up, I end up with a middle of the road 26 out of 40. What about you?
Yeah, and I'm just a couple points lower at a 23 out of 40.
Hard to talk about rewatchability when it comes to Elseworlds episodes. We always say that. But as far as if you're going to get dropped in and you kind of need to know some of the lore of this show, I feel like this is the episode where Batgirl officially joins the team. I don't know if you need to watch anything in between Batgirl Begins, the two-parter that kind of establishes her, and this. But this one feels kind of important if she wasn't accepted at that point, and now she's teaming up with Batman. It kind of feels like this is somewhat pivotal to understanding how or why she was accepted all of a sudden to the official team. So I feel like if you're talking the Batman episodes, maybe season 3 episodes, this feels relatively important.
Yeah, I would agree. This is like I said, it's a transition from from Batgirl as kind of a solo actor, a hanger on to official sidekick. So yeah, it's definitely important.
All right, Liam, well, that will begin to wrap us up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and supporting the podcast. Speaking of supporting the podcast, if you'd like to do so, we already talked one way at the beginning, but there are multiple ways to support the podcast. Subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app, whether that's Apple or Spotify or one of the other ancillary podcast platforms. Subscribe to us on there. If it lets you leave a review, 5 stars helps us out a lot. If you leave a little blurb on Apple Podcasts or leave a comment on the podcast, those both help us in the all ever powerful algorithm. So if you want to support us there, we're also on YouTube. Our YouTube link is in the show notes. So if you're not listening to us on YouTube and you have a YouTube account and you want to support the podcast, just subscribe. The subscription doesn't do anything other than give us a couple of extra people and eventually get us a personalized vanity link for the YouTube channel. So as we're building things on our own there, we're reestablishing ourselves on YouTube. Help us out, join us there, and check out the show notes to subscribe to us. Like the videos while you're there if you don't mind. Comment on them too. That helps us there. You can also, of course, speaking of commenting, follow us on Twitter at DCAU Review or on Instagram at DCAU Review. We're also on Facebook and Blue Sky and Threads. We talk about that every week. We're not on those as often, but hey, if you want to interact with us on one of those, we will eventually get back to you. So follow us at DCAU Review on those platforms as well. And then, of course, Liam, the main way to support us, we talked about at the beginning of the show, is buymeacoffee.com/DCAU Review. And as we talked about, if you join the Super Friend tier, you can ask us a question each week if you are in that Super Friend tier. And if you get your question in before we record, and Zach, once again this week, got his question in before we recorded. And his question comes with this. He says, this might be one you cover during plot and voice acting, but just in case, do you think this is the best version of Maxie Zeus? As far as I know, he's only been featured in Batman the Animated Series and Harley Quinn, so I know there's not much to judge by. So thoughts on, as far as characterization is concerned, maybe voice acting also, where does this Maxie Zeus rank as far as you're concerned?
I mean, like I said, I love the visuals of it. It's definitely a more fun looking character. I think the idea of just a guy who's gone insane and thinks he's literally Zeus is way funnier, though. Like, it's a way that feels way more Batman to me. So, like the I don't know if you would call it the classic version, but certainly the version we see in the animated series kind of sticks out to me. But I mean, I love the aesthetic of this one, certainly. So what about you?
Yeah, I would say as far as visually, this one, as we talked about when we were kind of breaking things down, he's definitely more formidable. It makes a little bit more sense, I'd say, versus a guy in a toga and sandals being the guy to seem like a formidable foe against the Dark Knight. Him having technology, obviously, in this that helps him in an army of soldiers also helps make him feel a little bit more formidable. But I think the way that he looks, I will always think of the Batman the Animated Series Maxie Zeus look when it comes to that. It's just how it was established in my brain. So regardless of whether or not he is a more serious villain or not, I think the Batman the Animated Series will take the cake for me. I like that episode. It's a fun episode. Certainly harkens back a little bit to the King Tut character in Batman 66 and all that. So, who I have a soft spot for that from that show. So, as far as if you want me to take this as a serious threat against Batman, yeah, this absolutely takes the cake. As far as characterization is concerned, usage, they're both only used one time. I'll probably still give the edge, I guess, to Batman the Animated Series overall. But this is a nice change up, I'd say. I agree with you. It's nice that they went in a different direction and kind of made it their own versus just copying and pasting what had already been done.
Agreed.
All right, Liam. Well, that will begin to wrap us up for this week. Once again, if you want to join Zach and the rest of our supporters, head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. You can get your question in for next week's episode. And speaking of next week's episode, Liam, we will continue once again next week, Liam, with another look at Superman's most recent cartoon version with My Adventures with Superman.
That's right. And folks may remember last year we did our first look at this series on our show, and we reviewed the pilot episode, Adventures of a Normal Man Part 1. But unfortunately, at the time, we didn't have time to get to Part 2 in our schedule. But the time is now. Well, actually, it's in a week from now, depending on when you're listening to this. But yes, next week on the show, we're coming back to cap off that two-parter with Adventures of a Normal Man Part 2, the second episode of the series, as Superman continues to fight a bunch of big, giant robots, and also still is trying to find his way as Clark Kent in his new job at the Daily Planet. So excited to get back to this this very popular series. It's I think getting a spin-off. There's going to do a Green Lantern show set in this universe as well. So lots of exciting stuff coming up for this My Adventures verse. It's gonna get its own verse name pretty soon, which is exciting. So if we haven't termed it yet, then I nominate Adventures verse as the title. But there might be something pithier we can think of. We'll talk about it next week. But yeah, excited to get back there next time on the show.
Can't wait to workshop that universe name with you next week, Liam. It's gonna be a blast. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
We hope you'll join us on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Adios.
DC High Volume, Batman. The Dark Knight's definitive DC Comics stories. Adapted directly for audio for the very first time.
Fear. I have to make them afraid.
He's got a motorcycle. Get after him or I'll have you shot.
What do you mean blow up the building?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
New episodes every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.